To me, that should be illegal. Do you think he actually believes that? Does he really think, like, if they took all welfare away tomorrow, that every single person who needed would just be taken care of by charity? Really? Like, really? They're either going to lie and say it's AI or talk about Joe Biden. I want it, like, what do they say to that? It's just like, what is your genuine response to that? As a Trump supporting Christian, I just don't get it. Jimmy the Giant, he's been making good shit lately. I think I saw his video about like how he how I escaped the alt-right pipeline. There it is. I guess this is kind of like the opposite. Did I escape the alt-right just to be brainwashed? And he's got like Hassan in the thumbnail. I'm like, uh-oh. You can't see it. Right there. Let's check it out. Fuck, I gotta piss though. I'm just gonna hold him.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Welcome to the alt-left pipeline. You didn't escape the alt-right, you simply got sucked into the lies of the left. When are you dropping How I Escaped the Alt-Left Pipeline?
Oh my god, it sounds like Weedy.
Woke crap. Since I made that video, Escaping the Alt-Right Pipeline, there has been a claim that's kicking around that I have jumped out of the alt-right pipeline and landed slap bang in the far left alt-left pipeline. In this video, I want to talk about that. I want to talk as well about what the direction of this channel is, how you guys can help. Yes, that means I'm setting up a Patreon and I'm going to ask you for money. But not just that, right? We're going to talk about the culture wars, the evolution of wokeism, and most importantly, am I now woke?
Yes, my favorite small YouTuber who only posts obscure content finally uploaded again. Is this submarine sort of woke now? Don't tell me that isn't a woke-shaped submarine. Trying new stuff, I guess. Sorry, I didn't know the Walt Disney Company is making submarines that looks less people.
I figured I'd start this video out with me doing my political compass. I did it on stream, and when the results came in...
Oh, shit. God, I'm a fucking lefty. That's mental. That's insane.
Oh, shit, you
I
can
can't
do
believe
it.
it, bro.
Yeah, I guess I am pretty left-wing now. Look, I'm going to make...
Should I do that?
My excuses. The problem I found with these tests when you do them is that it sort of doesn't account for nuance, because me, as an individual, I can be very critical of unregulated capitalism. However, I really like capitalism. I really like businesses. I like it in many industries. I like when people come up with innovative businesses and they create cool shit. I think without checks and balances, capitalism has some nasty tendencies. Competition in capitalism can drive innovation, but I believe in order to actually have real competition, you have to have things built in to stop the 1% of wealthiest people hoarding all of the wealth.
I agree with that too.
I believe a state should control its utilities, like private billionaires maybe shouldn't own our water supply, our rail, our electricity, etc. But you see, these political compass tests, they don't let you type out your answer. It's basically, is capitalism exploitative? Yes or no? So you just have to take my word for it that practically and politically, I am a social democrat. I believe in the sort of Bernie Sanders, the Nordic model, but the graph says I'm far left, so fuck it, I'll own it, I'm far left. But you see, this does leave two very important questions. Firstly, why am I not a communist? And secondly, and much more importantly, am I woke?
Almond milk. All I want's proper bloody milk, not left-wing options, proper milk. What's wrong with me asking for that?
To answer these questions, I'm going to tell you a very long and drawn-out story to extend the retention time on this video.
Some of these, almost there, and done. Now let's see how it looks so far.
Alright, imagine this. You made it to summer, you managed to not top yourself during the British winter, and you go on holiday to Croatia. Look at it. Oh my god, what's that thing in the sky? Where's the rain? Where's the grey? Why is it not all grey? It's your first day and you think, you know what, fuck it, we're not going to do the bags, we're going to leave them in the hotel room and let's just go to the pool. And you're feeling good, right? You walk down, you're British, obviously you've already got beer in your hand at 10 a.m. And as you walk down to the swimming pool and you look for a sun lounger, you peer over your sunglasses and you notice there's fucking towels everywhere. You know what? I'm not going to get mad. Fair enough. It's a busy day. I'm a bit late. My fault. Should have got there earlier. So tomorrow I'll wake up early and I'll try again. Tomorrow comes. You wake up early, 8 a.m, and you go down to the pool and you notice there's fucking towels on every sun lounger, Barry. Why are there towels everywhere? And what's worse is that about 40% of the sun loungers are empty. No one's sitting on them. Compared to the amount of people in the swimming pool, there are enough sun loungers to go around for everyone. However, because people keep putting their towels to reserve them, there's none available. So what do? Tomorrow, you set your alarm clock for 7 a.m, the moment that the pool opens, and you arm yourself with all the towels you can get. You sprint down to the pool, you beat everyone. Ha-ha! I did it! And in that moment of triumph, you realise, shit, I went from a nice, community-loving proletariat into this individualist, hyper-competitive petty bourgeoisie.
You've changed, man.
This right here is what happens in a society with no regulations. The greedy, self-interested individual can literally dictate an entire culture upon people who would actually not mind sharing.
We're all watching.
Do you guys agree with that? I think I agree. Where do you guys stand with his pool story? All right.
Because we're all horrified that we've had to do this every day on holiday, Lella. This has ruined my holiday.
That 1% of people, and you all know him, everyone knows that greedy guy in the group, they don't really care that everyone else has enough. All they care about is making sure that them and their family have what they need when they want it, whenever they want it.
So do you mind not looking at me like that all the time? It's really disturbing.
This small minority of people, their behaviour makes a ripple effect, which causes people to respond in defence, mirroring their competitive behaviour that otherwise they probably don't want to mirror. But they do so due to fear of scarcity. I mean, just think about it in your life. Like, during COVID, this happened with the toilet paper, right? Everyone was scared that they'd have none for when they needed a dump. And despite the news repeatedly telling us we have no shortage of toilet paper, the shelves are empty because people were panic buying.
As soon as you see some people buying more than they need to, you start thinking, will there be enough for me?
And when you're in the shops yourself, you can see that people are panicking, so you're starting to panic as well. It's more of a follow the crowd sort of thing.
In a plea to customers, they said, "We need your help. There is enough for everyone if we all work together."
Now look, this is all very tragic, right? Our beautiful, lovely Croatian resort. The poor people that just want a nice holiday. They all convene, right? All the pool goers, they convene and they discuss, how do we fix this problem? And they come to a genius conclusion of, maybe we should employ a few staff members to monitor all of the sun loungers and make sure that people aren't reserving them with their towels. And we make sure that we have enough sun loungers to go around. Yeah, well done lads, you did it. You had your big revolution. Pooltopia's established. Brilliant. But you know, look, some time passes and like new generations are born into this Pooltopia. And as we're sat enjoying a cocktail late into the evenings, old granddad, the proletariat, he's telling stories to his young petty bourgeoisie grandchildren. Listen here, Michael, back when I was your age, right? You won't bloody believe it, mate, but we used to have to wake up 7 a.m. to come down here and put towels to get a sun lounger. It was a nightmare. I'm telling you, it was a nightmare. Ruined the holiday. All right, Grandad, go to sleep. And one day, Grandad does go to sleep. And he doesn't wake up again. And slowly, we forget.
They're off. Look at them. They're off. Look at them.
The younger petty bourgeoisie, they never had to fight for their sun lounger. They grew up in good times and they start to have their own ideas of how this Pooltopian economy should operate. My friends of Pooltopia, I have a question. Why do we have these tyrannical pool chair Stasi policing and monitoring our every towel placement? Do they think we're children? This very persuasive speaker rallies the Pooltopian economy into firing the chair guards. And so what they do in turn of the guards is instead place nice shiny signposts on the walls saying, no putting towels on sun loungers. And the signs look great, right? They're brilliant and everyone's following them. But at the end of the day, they are just signs. One day, as they rush down to the pool to jump on a sun lounger, they notice that there's some towels already on the sun lounger. That's weird. It's probably nothing to worry about, probably just some keen beans going for a morning swim. And then they wake up the next day and they notice more towels are on the sun loungers. And the next day, and the next day. And just like that, the cycle resets. The towel wars return. And somewhere far away, Grandad Proletariat is rolling over on his heavenly sun lounger and thinking, I tried to warn him. Before we go any further, I want to give a massive shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Squarespace is undoubtedly the best platform for making your own beautiful, perfect website. With their new design intelligence, which combines the newest AI technology and their many years of understanding how to craft unique website templates. You can now literally just type prompts into the AI and it will make an entirely bespoke website template for you and your brand. And also what's so helpful if you're selling products online is their payment systems. They accept... Oh, we have to skip you, I'm sorry. Anyway, back to the video. Thank you guys. Don't worry, you don't need to give me a round of applause. I know, it was a masterful analogy. This concept and this thought of like how power struggles in politics eternally have battles was encapsulated perfectly by the aristocratic socialist MP, Tony Benn.
I'm old now, and the older I get, the more I realise every single generation has to fight the same battles again and again and again. There's no final victory and there's no final defeat.
This right here is where I personally separate from, say, communists and real far left people. They will point to like the 1900s, right, where people are working in these brutal factories for pennies, living in slums, and then from incredible hard-fought battles politically, by the 1950s, these same types of people were given free social housing, free healthcare, free education, and it was great. It led to 30 years of the longest continued economic growth we've ever had. We drastically reduced inequality. There was very few economic collapses. However, this incredible progress was completely reversed.
Socialists don't like people to do things for themselves. Socialists like to get people dependent on the state. You'll never build a great society that way. We were the first country to attempt and to succeed in rolling back the frontiers of socialism, which is the first cousin to communism.
By the 70s, when Thatcher came in, the wealthy classes managed to undo a lot of this progress, stripping back welfare states, privatizing publicly owned assets. And the communists will argue that the reason this happened is because we didn't go full communist. And like, you know, I agree with them. However, I personally don't believe that there is an eternal solution. I just personally don't believe it. On some level, no matter how much you achieve, how much you raise living standards, how much you structure your democracy to be as representative and democratic as possible, ruthless actors will still find a way to give themselves more power and control. When the problems of the past are fixed, the younger generation forget the struggle that it took to get there. And you can see this on the other side, when you flip over to like right-wing libertarian attitudes to capitalism. Many of the American right sort of follow this idea, like Ben Shapiro, but then in Britain we have like with the Reform Party, Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage, who often talk about removing the welfare state. They criticise disability benefits a lot. Some of them want to privatise the NHS. This ideology, this sort of libertarian ideology, completely forgets the reason why these things exist in the first place. Wait a second, why does it exist? Isn't it just one big waste of money?
Well, first of all, the number of people who will suffer is likely to be very, very small. Private charity, private efforts will provide support for the vast majority of people who would be poor in the absence of some kind of support. And
do you think, like that guy, right, who just said that dumb shit, do you think he actually believes that? Does he really think, like, if they took all welfare away tomorrow, that every single person who needed it would just be taken care of by charity? Really? Like, really? Or is he just on that bullshit?
Government does it, it creates an air of entitlement that leads to more and more demand for redistribution until everyone becomes a ward of the state.
Well, let's talk about that. So let's say we have some bloody libertarian revolution, and we create the Free State of Britannica, sponsored by Meta. In this amazing libertarian utopia, we all go out and we make our own little businesses. I open a little shop selling gamer goo. You open a gallery displaying NFTs. And like, you know, we still have a government because we're not complete anarchists, but it's a very small government. There's no welfare programs, there's no free healthcare, there's none of this stuff. All there is a few politicians to stop monopolies forming, because even libertarians understand that monopolies are bad. And whilst it's all going great and we're all trading and doing our thing, a guy appears, right? His name is Shelon Crust. Shelon invents a brain chip that can cure your existential loneliness. Amazing! What a great innovation! What a genius! The market should reward him for his incredible contributions to humanity. And so, Shelon becomes incredibly wealthy.
But you're trying to do good things and you're a billionaire. I mean, yeah, that seems a little bit like either superhero or supervillain. You have to choose one.
And because he owns this chip, he's able to spread his ideas on his platform and push them to everyone. And he starts pushing some ideas of how society should function. Weird, different ideas with like strange hand signals and stuff.
Okay,
And what Shelon does, because he's so wealthy, he actually manages to find a very charismatic politician. And that politician is called Ronald Rump, and he becomes the president. And all of a sudden, Shelon starts bending the laws to suit him. The government, who are meant to be like, you know, not involved in the economy, they start imposing tariffs on Shelon's competitors. He even manages to make the politicians agree to taxing the people, and those taxes go to funding his big projects. And very quickly, Shelon just starts building this non-competitive monopoly. But wait a fucking hang on a second. In our libertarian economy, you're not meant to do that. It's against the rules. Shelon doesn't give a fuck about your lame little rule book, and he's made enough money and has enough power to do whatever he wants.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
And what's worse, right, is because you made the government so small and so weak, you actually stripped away all of its powers to protect the people from Shelon's red pill rage. And very quickly, Shelon starts exploiting the working class. And bada bing, bada boom, well done, you recreated the 1900s.
I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay, you're all gone.
You see, this is the big problem, right, with libertarian theory, is that built into libertarian theory is this belief that cultural
Somebody
value...
said this guy's dumb. Why do you say he's dumb? I feel like, what has he gotten wrong? I feel like everything's just been, like, pretty factual now. What's he gotten wrong, people? Or maybe he was saying me. He's simping too hard for government? How?
alone and market competition are enough to guide.
Wants them to have more power to influence us. Who, the government? Or You think he wants the government to have more influence or more power to influence us? I think he was just talking about, like, think about this, right? Like, maybe this is a discussion, but like all the Democrats are like, everything Elon is doing is illegal, but like they can't stop him. I think he's talking more like that, which makes sense to me. It's like, but then I guess you could ask, like, okay, well, if Democrats had the power to stop him, then maybe they would abuse that power. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Morality of individual people to not exploit each other, as opposed to having heavy rules and regulations. But I mean, just look through history. Look at every civilization ever. History shows us that powerful, rich business people exploit workers wherever they can, unless the state steps in to stop it.
You have security cameras right behind you at all times that are looking at you 24/7. And if you don't meet standards or the rates, you're out the door, you're just disposable.
Even Margaret Thatcher, the icon of neoliberal philosophy, in her dying days, she regretted some of the forces that she unleashed through neoliberalism.
Some of the arrogant displays of wealth jarred very much with me and with the Prime Minister.
The capitalists have given Margaret Thatcher a bad name.
God damn, my bad.
She did not believe in excess. She believed in responsibility.
In a system with no rules, power will always win. And power doesn't care about your cute free market fantasy. It cares about control and domination.
The free market has never existed. It is a figment of the imagination of people. The market is a system that favors the rich, which is why the rich love markets.
So, like, with all
Do
that...
we agree with that statement? Let's play it again for those of you in the back.
Cute free market fantasy, it cares about control and domination.
The free market has never existed. It is a figment of the imagination of people. The market is a system that favors the rich, which is why the rich love markets.
Okay, SJ, why do you say no? Because I feel like, yeah. If you're rich,
So,
you have a
like,
huge advantage. You can spend way more money on advertising, which is like really all you need. To me, it's like, I don't know how we got to this point, right? Like, think about Uber. To me, this just feels evil. Maybe I'm getting the economics of it wrong, but like when you explain Uber to me, it's like, okay, well, first we had taxis, right? And then this random company comes along and offers the same service as taxis so cheap to where the point where they make like the taxi service just die because they undercut them because they have huge investors, so they're just taking a loss. And then once the taxi service is just fucking done and people don't use it anymore, then they increase the prices. So it's like, well, what the fuck? To me, that should be illegal. Like, how the fuck is that fair? That's not fair at all. But I don't know how to control that.
With that in mind, that's the very extreme libertarians and the very extreme communists. It leaves me in this weird place where I, in one part of my brain, understand and accept that we do have the logistical and technical ability to literally create a utopian world, to give everyone what they need. But unfortunately, I believe that despite that, humans...
Why? Now that, like, but do you think that's realistic, though? Like, in theory, right? But, like, we're all kind of getting fucked. Especially, well, I mean, who's getting fucked here? Well, the people who drive, I'm assuming taxi drivers probably had some sort of, like, benefits and shit, right? I would assume, like, that was, like, a real career. Like, I don't know if they had health insurance and that. I'm, like, 99% sure if you drive Uber, you don't get any of that shit. And you got to use your own car. And you got to pay for your own gas. I guess it depends, like, if we're trying to think of, like, oh, well, what's best for all of us? Like, how much cheaper is Uber than taxis were back in the day? That I would like to know. But just, like, just based off of the shit that I said, like, that seems fucked up to me. I feel like you should not be able to do that.
Human nature stops us from achieving it. Self-interested individuals will do what they can to break anything good that we have. And
so Night Raven said, let the corporals fight for our money and attention. But what happens when you're doing that to, like, small businesses? You know what I mean? Like, think about Amazon and books. They used to just be, like, bookstores. Nah, not anymore. Just, he'll take a loss just so he can wipe out the whole fucking shit. You know what I mean? An unfortunate sacrifice for the consumers. But what if the consumers aren't winning? At the end of the day, like once they cut out the competition and increase the prices, what if they were like the same as that other company? Isn't that like just immoral? That feels immoral to me.
And benefit themselves. And that applies to even what I advocate for, the system of social democracy. Even if you achieve it, it will eventually become undone. I think you even see this starting to happen in some of the Scandinavian countries, where there's more privatization happening and stripping back of their welfare state. I just think you have to build a state that protects us from that as much as is possible.
There is no destination called justice or democracy, and if you catch a train driven by the right man, you'll get there. Every generation has to fight it.
All of that understanding brings us to now, 2025, where we're in like this very weird time politically. So whilst wages have stagnated for the last 15 years, houses now cost 10 times the average annual salary.
Wait, let me look at that graph. Wages have stagnated since the 2008 recession. Well, this is their country, so wow. Damn. So this is where we're supposed to be, and yeah, that's not good. We can all agree that that's fucked, right? Again, different country, but I'm sure we're not too far off. Fuck.
For the last 15 years, houses now cost 10 times the average annual salary. All the while corporations are making record profits, whilst people can't afford heating. The middle class is shrinking, the poor are getting poorer. Despite all this, society seems to consider the most important problem of our time is which bathroom does a trans person take a shit in?
You don't agree with gender-neutral loos?
No, not at all. I think they're extremely dangerous.
And bro, I'm not judging. I was one of these culture warriors. I was deep in all this stuff. I was one of them. But how did that happen? Well, this is where things get a little bit interesting. And it all started in 2008.
But we are underway, and I do mean underway.
We're essentially down by 4-5%, down over 16%, 18%, 21%,
43%.
Traders here working the phone say a lot of their customers are freaked out, waiting to see how low the Dow will go. They're focused on the Dow, not so focused on OPEC.
After the financial crash, where big banks committed financial terrorism, gambling on people's homes, and crashing the economy, this resulted in mass unemployment, rising inequality, and the destruction of working class people's savings. When I was growing up, they referred to this as the credit crunch. The biggest financial crash that's happened since the Great Depression, they had branded it like it was a breakfast bar.
Oh, cool, no doubt.
This crash led to the taxpayer bailing out the banks. In America, it was up to $700 billion. In the UK, it was £137 billion, with a £1 trillion safety net to protect the banks from collapsing. And so, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Lehman Brothers, the banks who tanked the global economy were saved by taxpayer money, whilst the working class saw the greatest cuts they'd seen in generations via austerity. And people noticed this pretty quickly. People were starting to wake up to the fact that unregulated capitalism as it currently existed is fucked. Public rage was brewing, and the ruling class was starting to get scared that real change might occur that would upset the current order in which they benefit.
Can somebody explain to me? I was a child back then. Explain to me why we decided to bail these people out. I know we didn't, but like, what was the argument? I don't understand. Why didn't the politicians just say, "Oh, well, fuck you, your shit dies now"? That sucks. Does anybody know? This fucking beetle thing flying in my room is really aggressive. To avoid a global depression. He said too big to fail or some shit. Yeah, that's my knowledge. I remember hearing that, but I'm like, fixing the economy by bailing them out. Should we look into that? Also, next stream, you guys remind me to take the tests. I want to see where I'm at. Today is probably going to be a shorter stream. I still got to work on this fucking Joe video. I just wanted to pop in, say what's up.
Benefited from. And so in 2011, we start to see the people organizing, and we see Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street all day, all week.
Suddenly, people aren't just pissed off and protesting, they're now naming names. The 1% becomes a mainstream concept.
1 in 7 children in the United States suffer from hunger. At the same time, we're giving billions and almost $1 trillion to Wall Street just for bailouts. We need an economy for the people and by the people, not by the rich and for the rich.
People are noticing that the politicians that they had to choose between were being funded by the same banks that just broke the economy. All the while, this left-wing populist movement was starting to grow, and they were demanding things like higher taxes, stronger labor rights, and universal healthcare. And so the ruling class realized that they needed a distraction.
Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. Tonight, the truth about social justice and distorting its meaning. No. We're going to correct its meaning.
Around the mid-2010s, something weird started to happen to the left. Social justice movements started to explode. We'd see Me Too, Black Lives Matter, increasing LGBTQ activism, and this movement starts to grow, and you see it in things like university and corporate HR departments, where they would start to implement diversity and inclusion initiatives. And some of this was very well intended, and some of it was purely performative.
Remember summer 2020, when our social media was filled with those little black boxes? Now this was irritating, as I could tell that these were people that had no intent on creating justice or true change, but they only wanted to appease their conscience.
From here, the liberal media starts to jump on board. You start seeing men's razor blades telling you that young boys having a little wrestle is toxic masculinity.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
Ice cream tubs were talking to you about racism. Nike run Black Lives Matter adverts whilst also simultaneously paying children to work in sweatshops. An era of what would be dubbed corporate woke washing started to gain a lot of momentum and kind of defang the economic left-wing movement of Occupy Wall Street. After George Floyd was murdered, big corporations would come out making these statements about racism, donating to charities, etc. But, they were very quiet in perhaps supporting any economic policies like higher minimum wage, stronger unions, enhancing social welfare programs, things that might help the living conditions of people like George Floyd. Instead, these big businesses started to focus on pushing identity politics as the main leftist discourse. And to average people, you could see it. You could see there was a hypocrisy. If you're not going to improve the living conditions that create many of these social problems, then it kind of came across as empty and hollow, performative, so to speak. And so it created a reactionary right-wing movement.
You miss those days? Isaac, what do you miss about those days?
I mean, you have talked about this woke mind virus. Yes. You should explain why you don't think it's hyperbole to say things like it's pushing civilization towards suicide.
2016 onwards, YouTube explodes with SJW cringe compilations. And whilst it seemed quite organic, various think tanks funded by billionaires were actually funding these anti-woke content creators, politicians, and policies. Things like the American Principles Project, the Clement Institute, the Heritage Foundation, the Stanford Review, Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News, The Sun, The Times, New York Post. All of these people would weaponize wokeness as the biggest existential threat to society.
David, am I overstating the fact that we're beginning to see the end of woke, the militarization of the Me Too movement and cancel culture?
The oil billionaires Dan and Faris Wilks, they would pump big money into things like PragerU and Daily Wire, who would push people like Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Jordan Peterson, etc. Eventually manifesting itself in Peter Thiel, the tech billionaire, being the financial backing force of J.D. Vance, who would of course become vice president.
Some religions view the body as a temple, and some religions almost invite the pollution. I think the woke thing is inviting the pollution.
And so with all this financial muscle...
What religions are inviting the what?
The anti-woke industry became big business. The media becomes fully addicted to this culture war. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter rewarded outrage content. And suddenly, every fucking influencer was making videos about woke college kids.
Imagine being a parent and seeing your child in a video like this.
I would love to talk with her and just see where she's really at.
Changed, screaming at a speaker.
Leading to this once united working class movement being divided into two camps. Right-wing people believing that wokeism is the root of all problems, and left-wing voters convinced that fascism was the root of all problems, rather than the economics that created this condition. And all the while we were fucking fighting each other, the actual elite were just laughing their fucking asses off, because no one was talking about them anymore.
Exactly. One day I will make a video about this. I already have the thumbnail planned out. It's going to be fire. It's probably going to be in like a year, though.
See this concept of wealthy billionaire class deliberately trying to push the blame onto something else, depicted perfectly in this post from Elon Musk, where he tries to shift the blame for society's economic problems onto certain billionaires, but obviously not him.
That's true, Travis. You're right. I just like to see where these people go logically. Because I feel like once you ask them, any Republican, I could say the same thing about a far-right person, 3 questions... They're either gonna lie, say something fucking stupid as fuck, or pivot. Really, one question. Yeah, and I've never. It would just be interesting to just see them do that, or if they'll be honest, which, I don't think I've seen it, but maybe.
What I care about is the reality.
There's so many
of
questions you could ask. There's so many. You could ask you could even ask just like, Trump, like, talking about how much he wants to fuck his own daughter. Is that weird to you as a Christian? Like, just that. Like, no, he doesn't. You play the clip. Play, like, all 5 of them. Like, you don't think that that's weird? Like, what do you think about that? They're either going to lie and say it's AI or talk about Joe Biden. Be like, and then I'll just say, yeah, I don't like Joe Biden either. I think he's weird. He didn't do what you said. It's not exactly as weird as the Trump shit, but, like, isn't that odd to you, like, as a Christian? I wouldn't, like, what do they say to that? It's just like, what is your genuine response to that as a Trump supporting Christian? I just don't get it.
Not the perception of it.
Christian.
And what I see all over the place is people who care about reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil. Fuck them.
Wow, that's the really? Does he not see the hypocrisy in this?
The culture wars successfully derailed the populist left movement. Corbyn was crushed by the media, Bernie Sanders was crushed by his own party, and the mainstream left of the Democrats and in Britain, the Labour Party, became...
Oh, they'll say it's out of context. Mix, welcome back. It's been a minute. But it's like, where's the context? Like, there's full context for all of them. Talks about how voluptuous she is, how the thing that they share in common is sex, like...
Have you read Anatomy of the State by Rothbard?
No, I have not.
These hollow parties with no actual backbone. And it just felt
also
like the
appreciate the two.
Leaders were just puppets put in front of us, making the conditions for some kind of outsider to win support because, well, at least he's different to what we've got now.
The forgotten men and women of America will be forgotten no longer. That is the heart of this new movement. Hillary called them deplorable. They're not deplorable.
Seems like that, to be honest.
But you see, it gets even deeper than all that. So after that 2008 financial crash, right, where everything went wrong, capitalism basically failed, the US Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to 0%. For the next decade, mega corporations, investment banks, and asset managers like BlackRock and Vanguard had access to virtually unlimited capital at 0% interest. Free money, basically, which they used to expand their control over the economy. Companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Tesla were able to expand their businesses aggressively whilst they didn't have to make profits. Amazon, for example, weren't profitable for years. It just kept borrowing at a near zero cost, undercutting all of their competition until it just monopolized online retail. And many of these tech startups that dominate...
That's my point.
The world now did exactly the same.
No pre-watch, I promise you, no pre-watch. This guy, he just stole my ideas from the past and added them in.
Till it just monopolized online retail. And many of these tech startups that dominate the world now did exactly the same thing.
Not one wealthy company on the planet Earth that is cash free, that does not use debt. I don't want to get out of debt. I want to create wealth. And the way to create wealth is through debt.
BlackRock and Vanguard started buying up entire neighborhoods of houses, outbidding regular people who needed homes. They turned houses into financial assets. As they dumped more money into it and the supply didn't keep up with the demand, it drove house prices to the moon, like we can see now, to the point that now young people are never going to be able to afford a house.
It's the largest investor on planet Earth with over $9 trillion in assets. That's a pile of cash equal to about 1/10 of a year's global economic activity.
BlackRock and Vanguard combined manage over $17 trillion of assets, an amount that is larger than the entire GDP of China.
No one deserves to have that much money, right? I mean, that's not like, I think if you do something that's good,
So not only were these bankers not punished for destroying...
Mark, what changed?
...the entire economy, it was the opposite. They were rewarded. They were given free money to buy everything up. Meanwhile, for regular people, our wages stagnated, house prices soared, and the cost of living kept rising. So yeah, that's pretty heavy, right? It's all very, very interesting. But I want to answer the final question, the most important question. Am I woke? Short answer, no. I wouldn't say so. I don't think so. Probably if you meet me in person, I'm not going to lead every conversation with my pronouns. I have close friends from different cultures and we'll probably take the piss out of each other's culture. Probably, if I see a lady on an airplane and she's trying to pick up her bag, I might offer to help her. Truly a bigot. But jokes aside, that doesn't mean that I don't think transphobia, homophobia, misogyny, racism, all the isms and schisms, that I don't think that they are incredibly important topics. They are. Women still earn less than men for the same jobs. And when they try...
Okay, welcome back.
And ask for more money, they tend to get penalized for doing so, whilst men tend to get rewarded for that same behavior. 77% of young people who are LGBTQ+, who when asked for what was the cause of their homelessness, cited that family rejection, abuse, and being asked to leave the family home was the reason. And like in my country, we had anti-immigrant riots that swept all over our country based on racist lies. And the fucking guy who nearly led the Tory party and is still in their party refers to immigrants as importing alien cultures. Like he says it like it's a fucking normal thing to say. These are incredibly real and very important important topics that unfortunately, due to the culture war, have been commodified into like entertainment, where we seem to be going backwards on these things.
What was the woke conversation that we were having? And I'm just going to throw it out there because there were so many about going back and forth, the right versus the left, when we just snuck in Roe v. Wade. Like, what's being snuck in right now?
Explain that if inflation increases prices for everything, why does that not apply to workers' wages?
Slaying, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'll ask Republicans, right? I'll be like, so minimum wage hasn't gone up in like, I don't know how many years. Let's just say it's 20 years. Don't you think it should have gone up by then? Because everything else has gone up. You know what their response is? Well, those jobs are just for kids anyway. Why would those wages need to go up? I'm just like, what? Are you fucking stupid? Like, even if they are just for kids, shouldn't the kids now be able to afford what the kids back then were able to afford? Like, what the fuck? Like, that's just how they think. I don't get it. They're so afraid of like these fucking psychos making a little bit less money. Like, I don't get it.
All this
I guess I do to an extent, because I used to think like that a little bit more. I thought that like if you tax the fuck out of these people, they would leave and take the jobs and shit. But in reality, as soon as I learned, like back in the 60s 50s, I don't know about the 40s, but 50s and 60s, that the highest tax rate, the corporate tax rate was like 90%. I was like, oh, well, what the fuck? You should have just told me that. I didn't fucking know that.
With a question, like, what
back when America was killing it, and then it seemed like Reagan came and fucked everything up. I think that's true. Could be wrong.
What am I gonna do? Me. And like, look, I am just a guy. I'm just a guy. I'm not educated, but I do like want to try and help. I want to do my best to help. I've been blessed with this incredible platform, an incredible audience of you guys, and I also have the luxury of time and energy to focus in on trying to help. So my goal right now is to try and play my part in shifting the public discourse onto wealth.
See, this is why I respect this guy infinitely more than someone like Hassan.
Inequality. The reality,
besides just not being like insane, he can relate to the people. He's not saying crazy shit, and he's already talking about wanting to help people. Seems like. Let's see what he wants to do. Is it connected to his Patreon? Probably, but we'll see. Let's hear him out.
Is to try and play my part in shifting the public discourse onto wealth inequality. The reality is right now, the middle class is shrinking. The poor are getting poorer. Wealth inequality is absolutely fucking all of us over.
The growing gap between rich and poor Americans is one of the biggest challenges facing the country. Get this, the richest 1% controls more wealth now than at any time in more than a half century.
Why it gets me pissed is because it's literally stealing my generation's hope for a good future, a fulfilling life, the ability to buy a house, to have a family. This meritocracy we live in just is mental. You have to work so unbelievably hard to get the bare minimum.
I work, my wife also works, but what we make as income is probably not enough. It's just minimum wage, so it doesn't cover the bills, the rent, and every other thing we need to pay for.
Well, look, why don't you get a real job?
To be fucking honest, right? I have 500,000 subscribers. I make good money. I do well. I went down the whole route of like grind set, self-improvement, dog eat dog, all of this stuff. I did all that. And I succeeded, right? I made something. It worked for me, right? But all I realistically got for it at the age of 30 is a mortgage on like an average size flat and an okay car.
Yes,
don't get me wrong.
That's one of Sam's stated talking points back when the 1% tax rate was 90%.
Truly blessed with what I have, and I'm very happy. But what I
Black Steve, I appreciate you.
Have materially is what the average family would have had many years ago, earned on one wage whilst having 3 kids, working as a milkman. But I'm not a pessimist. I truly believe we can fix this. The more people we switch on to this message, the more that we can fight wealth inequality. So here is my plan. Currently, I am in talks with a publisher about potentially writing a book. We'll see where it goes, but the idea is to distill all of these ideas, these important bits of education that people need to understand, into a simple book that you can learn, digest, and share with your friends and family to get them on side. Secondly, I want to start connecting our movement together with live streaming. I did an awesome conversation with Gary's Economics. You can check that out below. But I'd like to do more of these interviews and more streaming, but I struggle to get the time because I spend so much time writing and editing. So I want to hire more solid, well-paid writers and editors to buy me some more time to focus on these bigger projects that I think will be impactful. So obviously I've started a Patreon and a YouTube join, right?
I am once again asking for your financial support.
I'll be super appreciative if you can support. It will massively help what I want to do. Maybe documentaries, films, all that kind of shit I'd love to do. So I'm going to throw
I respect that. Black Steve coming through. Black Steve always comes through. And that's a lesson you whites could learn, all right? Shout out to Jimmy. I thought this was a great video. And I hope to see him do big things. Let's talk, Jimmy. You can be on my live stream. I'll get you some viewers. I can get at least 65 people live. You've never seen numbers like these.